You don't have to have a bunch of nail supplies in order to do some fun nail art. So in today's video, I'm going to show you how I use some Sharpie markers to create some watercolor nail art similar to how I would use alcohol inks. As my base, I'm going to be using Dipp'd from All Powdered Up. This one is Beige. It's a UV changer, so here's what it looks like when the UV light hits it. And this is going to go on my index finger. So that's going to be my base for my watercolor nail art. And then I'll kind of explain the other dips as I get to them. But starting with my basic dipping process, I'm applying a thin, even layer of dip base to my entire nail. I just want to make sure that everything is covered. I am using my dip liquids from Double Dipped, and I'm just pouring over because the jars are so full. My personal preference is to dip directly in the jar just because I find it more satisfying and more fun to do, but I know a lot of people prefer to pour over their dip powders, and really it's a matter of personal preference. If you pour over, you do get thinner layers and you have less risk of wrinkling, of displacing that wet dip base. So there are a lot of advantages to it, but I don't know, I just find it more satisfying to dip into the jar. So once my dip base is dry, I made sure that I dusted off the excess powder. So now I'm going in for layer 2. So same thing, I'm applying a thin, even layer of dip base to my entire nail. So I start with my brush about the middle of my nail. I brush downwards towards my free edge, and then I'll work my way upwards towards my cuticle area. And that kind of helps with liquid control, because I don't want to flood my cuticles. So I want to be really careful. And then once I've got my dip base on, I'm going to go ahead and pour over for my second layer as well. I'm pouring over my powder into my Chaos Gel Mold by Chaos Concepts, and after I pour over the powder, I just like to do like one extra dip into the excess powder that's sitting there just to make sure all my dip base is fully absorbed. And I also want to make sure that I'm not missing my sidewalls, because I tend to miss more areas when I'm pouring over than when I'm dipping. So I just like to make sure everything's fully covered, and then once that's dry, I can go ahead and dust off the excess powder. I'm not working with any solid dip powders. They're all shimmers and glitter, so I'm going to wait to cap all my nails in clear at the end because I don't have to worry about contamination of any glitters. So I'm going to move on to my next color. This is What Are You Waiting For? And it's such a fun name. I just love the puns. But this is a really beautiful, like, aqua type color that has the most gorgeous shimmer to it. And as soon as I saw this, I knew I definitely wanted to use it. So this is going to go on my thumb and my pinky. And on the first layer, it is a bit sheerer, but it's very buildable, which I really enjoy about this powder. The colors I'm using for this mani are very beachy themed because I feel like the beach has been drawing me in lately. I am just itching to get to the beach. But I'm trying to hold out because I told my husband we took a trip to Jamaica back in February, which was super expensive. So I told him that was our vacation for the year. But when you get your vacation over with that early in the year, it is so hard to make it through the rest of the year without thinking about vacation. So I may have to cave, and we may have to do like our normal, at least like end of summer trip to the beach, because normally every year we'll do about end of September, early October is our beach trip, because that's when the crowds kind of die down. But where I am in the south, it's still pretty hot, but it's kind of like the perfect time for us. So I may have to cave. I went ahead and dusted off the excess powder once the dip base is dry, and I decided for my second layer, because you can see it's such a sheer color on the first layer, I wanted a little more opacity so I get better coverage if I don't pour over, if I either lay my finger flat in or dip into the powder. So I went ahead and poured the rest of my jar into my Chaos Gel Mold, and I'm just going to lay my finger directly into the powder rather than pouring over. I went ahead and capped all my nails in clear, activated and filed and buffed off camera. So here's how the mani's looking. So now we're going to get to play with some Sharpies. And don't mind my crusty cuticles. I want to make sure my nails stay dry and free of any oils to prevent any lifting. So for the nail art, I'm going to need some acetone. So here's what I have in the container. I also need a brush. So this is my iGel Beauty. This is actually like a 3D flower acrylic brush. I can't remember the exact name of it, but it's smaller, so I decided to use that. And then of course I need my Sharpies. So I chose these two colors. I've got a darker green and a pink. So I'm going to start with the green color and I'm just going to start drawing on my nail. So it's smooth and it's buffed, so it's easier to draw on, and it's going to look a little crazy. So it's kind of like a trusted process. I'm going to do a couple layers of it. So right now I'm just going to concentrate on like drawing my base of the flowers. And this is kind of inspired by my nail mat that you see that I'm using because it's got like the watercolor flowers on there. So I'm just going to get my baseline down of drawing the flowers. So I finished a couple flowers with the green. I'm now going to take the pink, and it's going to be like a different type of flower. It's going to be more of like a poofy. I can't think of the right word to describe it, but more of like a poofy flower rather than like individual petals, more like a mum type shape, I guess. So I'm going to do a couple of those as well, and I'm just going to, after I do this, I'm going to let this Sharpie dry. I want to make sure it's dry before I move on to the next step, which it does dry fairly quickly. Once it's dry, I'm going to pump a little bit of acetone into that cap, and then I'm going to dip my nail art brush in there, and then I'm just going to gently pat around where I have the Sharpie, and that's going to help like dissipate that look to make it a little less harsh and just kind of make that watercolor look. And it's okay if you remove a lot because I'm going to kind of layer it. So I'm going to do multiple layers of this just to give it a little more dimension. So I do want to dissipate it a little more than if I were just to leave it in that one layer, just so I can make the second layer a little bit darker and kind of build on that. So I'm going to do that for all the colors. And then I do have the paper towel down there as well, just so I'm wiping my brush in between the colors, that I'm not like contaminating the colors. I will eventually, I think, mix a little bit of that green with the pink, but for now I want to make sure that I'm keeping them separate, that I'm kind of moving the ink around. And you do need acetone for this because like when you're working with alcohol inks, you can use rubbing alcohol. But I found with the Sharpies that rubbing alcohol doesn't really move the permanent marker. So I did need the acetone in order to kind of move it. And you can do as little or as much as you want, but once I'm happy with kind of like the blur of the colors, I'm going to let it dry for a couple seconds because acetone is quick drying, and then I'm going to go in with layer 2. So on top of what I've done, I'm going to take the same color and I'm going to draw those flowers, and I'm going to make it a little bit smaller than I did my first flower, so just inside those lines I'm going to do the same thing. So I'm going to draw in, and then once it's dry I'm going to take the acetone and start blotting and blurring it more just to make that watercolor type look. So I'll let you watch the rest of this process and then I'll jump back on. I let that dry for a full 5 to 10 minutes, so now I'm going to go in and protect it with a polished top coat. So normally I use my Maniology smudge-free top coat on top of any nail art, but I just got this Lights Lacquer Nail Art No Smudge top coat and I was eager to give it a try. So I just want to make sure the Sharpie is fully dry before I do this. So I'm just going to apply a thin layer on top of the art. I want to make sure that I'm kind of floating it because I don't want to smudge it and I haven't used this before, so I'm not sure how well it would work. And the reason I'm doing this is because I'm going to be using a dip top coat and I can't apply activator straight on top of my Sharpie nail art because that would definitely smudge that. And so I want to make sure that I'm protecting it before I go in with my activator. Once that's fully dry, I'm going to go ahead and apply one final layer of activator to all my nails, and I'm going to do my index finger last just to give it a little extra time. And when I get to my index finger, I'm going to kind of float my activator on top. I don't want to drag my brush through the top coat because that could mess it up, so I just want to make sure that I'm very light with it. I waited 2 minutes for my activator to dry, and now I'm going in with my first layer of dip top coat in the same order I applied my activator. So starting with my middle finger, I'm applying my top coat in 2 to 3 swipes on each nail. I'm being fairly quick about it, and in between each nail I'm making sure to wipe my brush on a lint-free wipe. And then once I'm done with my 5th nail, I'm ready to go in with my second layer of dip top coat. As always, I'm going to finish off my mani by rehydrating my cuticles with my Skills of a Mermaid cuticle oil. I am still obsessed with this June limited edition scent. This is Show Me Your Fishy Face, and it is hands down my most favorite scent. No kidding. It's like a little citrusy, it's got some sweetness to it, it's a little bit of tartness, so it's not like overly sweet, kind of like that sour type. It's just so good. I love it, and it's just like a nice refreshing scent. And as I suspected, it did sell out on the first night it released, so there will be a restock. I don't know if the restock is going to happen before or after this video is up, so make sure you're keeping an eye out. So that pretty much wraps up today's video. I wanted to show you a different way to do some nail art, and you don't have to buy like a bunch of alcohol inks. More than likely you probably already have some Sharpies laying around your house. So you can just use what you have, and it's really fun to do. And this is how the Beige looks in UV light. So I just stuck my hand in the lamp, and then you can see it changing back because it's no longer under that UV light. It's just so fun. So anyway, I hope this video was helpful. I hope you enjoyed it. And if you did, I'd appreciate it if you gave this video a thumbs up. It lets me know to continue creating content like this, and it also helps YouTube recommend me to others, which helps grow my channel. And if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. I upload content every Monday and Thursday at 9:30 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. As always, I appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next one. Bye.